Okay, so for part two, we are going to examine some of the things that I showed you before, um, and in particular, what you should be looking for when you are taking your field notes. From your first assignment, you should know right by now that you need to get very detailed in your field notes. So the chapters on jottings and how to translate into paper give you a good um, a good way to do that. And if you forget that, it wouldn't hurt you to go back and revisit those chapters. Um, but right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of a worked example of how someone could look at a user form. It will be more difficult for me to examine or to at least show you how to examine people that are playing games, but I'm going to try to do my best as the things that you're going to look for and to try to come up with some concrete examples. But for instance, we're going to start looking at the user forms first. So this is the user form for Team Fortress 2 that you saw in part 1. And first off, what you'd want to observe or what you would like to examine. If you are looking at user forms or video games, the first thing that you probably will want to look at is popularity, meaning how many people use those user forms. So if you go to a forum where it's been around since 2008 and only 20 people have posted, it's probably not a good place to examine sociocultural practices, learning practices, etc. But if you look at a place that, let's say, like the Steam forums, where if you look over here, the thread of the day how to play video has more than 282,000 views, you know that it has a very large audience base, or at least people who are invested into the game. And so that'll be probably a good place to look. Likewise, if you're looking at, let's say, somebody playing solitaire, although a lot of people play solitaire, you're probably not going to get a lot out of those field notes. But if you see people playing other card games such as Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, or Yu-Gi-Oh!, then you'll be able to find a lot more. Because not only will you be able to examine people playing those card games, but you'll also be able to examine some of the cultural practices, maybe some of the fan forums that are devoted to that. That's also one more thing I wanted to talk about, and I forgot to mention it in the first part. If you examine other people, get their permission first. And I'm going to bold and underline that. What I mean is that if you go to a LAN establishment and you watch people playing games, it will probably be best to go there and ask if you can record them if you are going to, or take field notes of them playing a game. The only reason is because, well, there's several reasons. A, one, you don't want to look creepy. You want to make sure that people know that you are a researcher and that you are looking at people playing video games. Two, it's just out of courtesy. You want to make sure that if you're looking over somebody's shoulder, they're not going to mind, because you may mind if someone was looking over your shoulder. So always get the permission of people, especially if you're examining people in their own environments. So for instance, at a game shop, or if you're watching people playing Rock Band at a bar. The bar would probably be a little bit easier to take some field notes at because you can kind of blend in with the crowd. If you go to an RPG shop or any place that deals specifically in computer games or video games, it would be best to ask them first. Okay, so with that little rant aside, we'll go back to examining stuff in the field notes. So things to look for. So popularity. So this one's very popular. Second thing, look for indicators of status. So, what does that mean? In user forums especially, we talk about things that will tell you whether or not people are more respected than other people. So G and Steinkuhler and Squire and many other games researchers talk about affinity spaces, where people can come together in a space and collaborate, and regardless of race or gender or socioeconomic backgrounds. But at the same time, when they come together in this space, there are some people that will be listened to above others based on their seniority, based on the number of postings. And what do I mean by that? So for instance, Let's take a look at this. So if I'm on the user form here, I notice that there is a category up on the right that says rating, and it's designated by these stars. So every one of these things have different stars to it. So right now it says thread rating, 2 votes, 5 average. So people who have voted for these things have given them averages. So for instance, this thread, 160 votes, 4.31 average. This one here, 75 votes, 4.01 average. Now even though this has a 5 average, there's only 2 votes. And this one has 160. So this isn't exactly a very good indicator um, of the status or how important it is, but at the same time, it does have these things here so that people who come to the forum will understand, okay, so maybe this is a very popular forum, maybe I should take a look at it. What else can I look at? So there are these things called stickies. Sticky is the term for a thread that is posted and is found to be so important by the people in the forum that they nominate it to become stuck to the board, which means that whenever you load up the user form, the sticky will be the first thing that comes up. So TF2 guide list. Now again, indicators of status. So I'm looking at this user here named Evil Daedalus, and I can go to look at all their public profiles. You can also see an indicator status here. So there's 2 stars here underneath his name. The join date, August 2007. So Evil Daedalus has been around for quite a while. The reputation is 135. Excuse me. I don't exactly know what the 135 means, but you can compare that to other users on the forum. But the posts will be also another good indicator of status. So that's at 470. Now 470 is quite a bit of postings. Now there might be people who have posted more, there may be people who have posted less. But the whole idea is that Evil Daedalus has been around in these forums long enough that they've been posting things consistently. Okay, so I take a look at this, and I notice that Evil Daedalus has a thread about how to play these different classes as a new user. And in Team Fortress 2, if you're unaware of it, it's a class-based first-person shooter where you take on many objectives, and the missions and the maps change depending on the objective and the makeup of the teams. But there are these classes of people that you can play, and there are no explicit instructions in the game. So a lot of people who, when they play the game, have to rely on a lot of these user forms. Until recently, when Steam put in tutorials for some of the classes. But not for all the classes, and that's where some of these user forms come in. So if you see here, Evil Daedalus has basically cultivated several sources here on how to play a class such as the Pyro, or the Demo Man, or the Heavy. These are things that he finds to be the best resources to play these. And these are links. So he has all these things that are linked to places where you can go to watch how to play certain classes. Indicator of status from this would be people who comment afterwards. So the one right underneath it is Wormbrain, has 3 stars, 829 posts. Says very nice, this should be stickied. And you could take a look at some of the commentary throughout the postings to see whether or not the people agree with him or people don't. A lot of times, if they do these things in user forums, there'll be a lot of postings, especially for the ones that are stickied, as to what people feel are some of the best places to go. Okay, so back to, I keep on using the phrase sticky. Sticky, reputation, status.